go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us today on the menu, Making Digital Content More Accessible. My name is Amanda Ronan. I'm the Director of Programs for the Research Triangle Foundation, and we have been doing this program for almost 3 years. The mission of it is each month to help you get to that next level of business, whatever that next level might be. So we have done all sorts of topics, things from super specific on how to write a grant, up to things that are a little more across genres and businesses, like the act of listening, the art of listening that Rachel actually taught in the past, or body language. So today, before we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple quick things. Rules of the road, since we are virtual. You are all muted by design, and Zoom just updated something recently. So unless you want to be seen by everyone else, your name displayed, you need to have your camera on. Otherwise, you will just be in the participants, which is totally fine either way. I will be recording this event, so if you want to reference it later, you can message me and we can send you a recording. Also, we will be taking questions throughout. There will be a time at the end for questions and answers, but if you want to ask questions, you can ask them in the chat. So to go ahead and get that started and just get everyone comfortable with the chat, would love to know where everyone is Zooming from today. So if you wouldn't mind dropping that in there, that'd be great. Florida, that's awesome. Garner, Frontier, Raleigh, Morrisville, Clayton, great. Connecticut, wow. Greensboro, Durham, awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today's event is sponsored by Alta Ren. I am going to drop their website in the chat. Really great apartment complex local to the Triangle. They have given us these cute little bags, like reusable shopping bags, and filled with goodies. But like my favorite is this guy right here, this little like tumbler. So if anyone wants their bag, since we were going to be in person, they have an in-person element. If you want a bag, they're available for pickup at the Frontier. If you don't live locally, just direct message me your address and we can get that sent to you if you're interested. Happy to do it. Do I have anything else to tell you guys about? I think that's it. I'm going to introduce our lovely session leaders today. We have Rachel Healy, the co-founder of OpenEye Creative and 3-time on the menu speaker, and Alisa, Herr, founder and CEO of Unity Digital and 2-time on the menu speaker. So you guys are in great hands. These two ladies have been members of the Frontier and really big supporters of this program from the start. So I will let y'all take it away, and thank you for agreeing to speak today.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you all. I'm going to start with a quick agenda for our time today. So we're going to start with an overview that explains what accessibility is, why it's so important. I'm going to share a couple of video tips, how to make your videos more accessible. Alisa is going to talk about website tips, how to make your websites more accessible. We'll have some Q&A, and then we will wrap up with some breakout rooms with a couple of questions for y'all.
So just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Alisa Herr, and I'm the founder and CEO of Unity Web Agency, which just this week is celebrating our 5th birthday. I can't believe that my company has turned 5. We're officially kindergartners. Our company, Unity, we focus on creating accessible websites for nonprofits, businesses that are socially responsible, really just anybody who is trying to make the world better, making people's lives improving people's lives in their communities is really our focus. And we want to help companies and businesses and nonprofits and organizations that are all doing the same. I have 2 boys, and they are elementary schoolers. So it's always fun, busy, hectic times at my house.
And I am Rachel Healy. I'm the co-founder and managing director of OpenEye Creative. And we create videos and video strategies for nonprofits, institutes of higher education, and mission-driven businesses. And I am also a Spanish language learner. Hands up or thumbs up if you have ever tried to learn a new language as an adult, or if you're learning right now. So I mentioned that because we're actually going to come back to that later, you know, how much of a challenge it could be. But that's something that we'll talk about a little bit later. All right, so we have some questions for y'all. We have a quiz. You will not be graded. I am going to ask a question. Alisa will share the answer. We're just going to walk through this. We're not going to do the polling feature. We're just going to do this through slides. So we would ask for your participation. You can just drop your answer in chat. So we'll start with the first one here. How many people in the world have a disability? So this is multiple choice. So A, B, C, or D. Drop your best guess if you don't know for sure in the chat. Great, we have a lot of D's coming up. Alicia says C. Okay.
This is great.
Great.
Everybody seems to be on the same page. The actual answer is C. So this is a statistic from the WHO that 15% of the world is living with a disability. And so we'll get to it, sorry.
Okay, next question. How many people in the US, in our country, have a disability? What do you think? A, B, C, or D? Drop your answer in the chat. So we have a few C's, a couple D's, B here.
All right, so this is the curveball. The reason being, it's 1 in 4. So if you compare the WHO statistics about the world, where 15% of the global population has a disability, this statistic for the United States is actually comes from the CDC, and it's more. And I think that a possible reason for this is, well, it's two different polling places, you know, that are getting those numbers, but also that it's possible that it's safer in the United States to be open about a disability. And that's sort of where I'm landing with this, but I'm curious, you know, if anybody has questions later or ideas, like drop your ideas in the chat if you've got thoughts about why this number is so different. But really the reason we're bringing this up is so that you're aware of how prevalent this is. There are so many people with disabilities that it's the largest and most diverse minority group in the whole country.
And lastly, which of these celebrities is open about their disability? So A, B, C, or D. Go ahead and drop your answer in the chat. Okay. All right, Amanda's saying and C. Got a lot of B's here.
Good thought, Beth. All right. So this is a trick question because it's all of them. So Marlee Matlin is a famous deaf actress. Michael J. Fox, as many of you all seem to know, he has, I think, early onset Parkinson's disease. Simone Biles has ADHD and is very open about that. And Halle Berry, this one I thought was really interesting. She's had type 1 diabetes for most of her life, but she also acquired hearing loss as a result of domestic abuse. And I thought it was really interesting to see sort of this variety of disabilities come in all shapes and sizes. Some of them are visible, some of them are not visible, and all of them can happen at any point in your life. It can be something you're born with. It can be something that genetically, just kind of decides to make an appearance in your 20s, or it can happen because of an accident or abuse or some other thing that was imposed upon you. So it's a diverse thing that we're talking about here. It's not just one disability, and accessibility goes along with that. When we're talking about accessibility, it's about all different types of abilities. It's not just physical, it's vision, hearing, learning, chronic illness, temporary disabilities, and all of those are things that we address through website accessibility and digital accessibility, really. So why is accessibility important? First of all, it is good for business. Even if you're not aware of a segment of your market that is people with disabilities, it's inevitable that you're serving them. Basically, all of us that have businesses or work in a business, like your job is to serve people when it comes down to it. So basically, you want to create a good experience for everybody, whether it's your customers, other coworkers, anybody that's interacting with your business. So when you're creating a website that is accessible, like you're actually addressing a few things at once, which is really extending the reach of your business to its audience. But it also has the added benefit of accessible websites are also searchable. So it's actually good for your SEO. Little fact there. The law, there's actually legal requirements, and without getting too caught up in the details, just know that the federal courts are still kind of battling this one out, but there's plenty of case law that's been used to uphold more and more of the lawsuits over the last few years. And the really interesting fact about it is that over 90% of the cases are resolved in favor of the plaintiffs. So that means that the businesses that are being sued for not having accessible websites are having to settle usually between $15,000 and $50,000 to settle cases. And this isn't just the big names that are being sued, it's small businesses as well. And even if you're, especially like there's unfortunately kind of predatory companies out there that are like going after small businesses, suing them for not having accessible websites. And then they are like, another arm is like, well, we have a fix for this. And it's a crappy thing, but it's the reality. And these cases are getting more and more each year. But really, the reason it's important is not because of business or law. It's really about human rights. Like being accessible is just the right thing to do. Making sure that your digital content is accessible means that you're treating all people fairly and equally. And really just to remember as we go into this, that being accessible doesn't mean that you're going super basic with stuff. A lot of times people have this misconception of accessibility as stripping away components, stripping away any kind of features, but really it's the opposite. Being accessible can be a source of innovation and growth.
So today we are really just scratching the surface on this topic. This is meant to be a primer. We're going to tell you, 5 important things, but it's certainly not exhaustive. 5 important things you can do to increase your digital content accessibility. What we do have for y'all, if you want to dig a little bit deeper, is a free guide. It's an accessibility checklist, which you can grab on Unity's website. I'm going to drop this I'll drop this link in the chat. We'll also share this a little bit. We'll share the link again a little bit later if you don't have.
That was the other link.
Oh, oh, that's all right. So I'm so sorry. Give me a sec, y'all. I think I grabbed this from our previous. I don't want anyone to be offended, but this isn't the first time we've done this presentation. But you are our best audience. So we presented before, so we had a different URL. But the second one that I just shared will get you there, on the menu. And you can go ahead and download that for free if you want to dig a little bit deeper. All right, so I'm going to start with a couple of video tips. Before we jump into them, we are going to share a video for you.
Hello, I'm the original. What takes 10 seconds, costs nothing, but could help change your child's life forever. Yes, that's it. Just turn on the subtitles. Extraordinary. Research has shown that they can double becoming good at reading. You don't have to tell them you're doing it. They probably won't even notice that it works. It's magic all by itself. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Some children can step back and leap which is worrying and the tragedy. So do it right now. Turn on the subtitles and let the magic begin. Oh, please. If you want to find out more, just go to www.turnonthesubtitles.org. Oh, please, be a sport and share this.
Oh, come on.
Okay, so you might not have heard that video, but hopefully you all saw the caption. So this is our very first tip, and I think it is the most important one, the most obvious one for sure. You want to create captions for your videos, for all of your videos. Just a quick note that captions and subtitles aren't exactly the same, but for purposes of this presentation, I'm going to be using them interchangeably. So basically, you want to make sure that when words are spoken in your video, you want to give people at least the option to read them on screen. And there are a few different reasons for this. So the first one is very obviously and importantly, that it helps viewers who are deaf or hard of hearing. So it gives them the option to know what is being said. The second reason is, and this is coming back to what I talked about at the beginning, being a Spanish language learner, it helps foreign language learners, people who may not speak English as their first language. And it's one of the ways that I have been learning Spanish. I will turn on the subtitles so that I can read what is being said in the Spanish language program. And finally, as we saw in the video, it helps school-age children. And this is really important too. So we have three really good reasons, but Alisa and I were talking about this the other day, and we were talking about how we often have the captions on in English when we're watching something just out of habit. We find it helpful. So I'm curious if you do that too, go ahead and raise your hand or give a thumbs up. If you tend to do that, it can be really helpful when you're just watching anything at all. So how do you actually get captions on your video? So I'm going to talk about that. So the only thing you need is what's called a subrip subtitle file. It's an SRT file. And that's essentially a plain text file with time codes that line up the audio and the video, or the audio and the text. So at my company, OpenEye Creative, we create these SRT files for all of our clients because even though it's an extra step, we don't see it as optional. We see it as something that is essential. So what I'm showing here on screen is an actual SRT file from a recent project we did. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how we do this. So we use a service called sonics.ai. And what this is it's a website that you go to, you upload your video, and it will automatically transcribe it. And then it will allow you to make edits. If there's anything that you need to change, you can make edits directly on their website in this interface, which is pretty user-friendly. So then you have a transcript of your video, which you can export as an SRT file. Once you have this SRT file, you can upload it along with your video wherever you host it, like YouTube or Vimeo. So again, once you have this SRT file, you need to take it and upload it separately along with your video wherever it's being hosted. So I'm going to show you a few options for these services, because honestly, y'all, if you Googled like caption services, there is no shortage of options that you have. So we use, as I said, sonics.ai. That's just what we use. It's what works best for us. But you have a bunch of different options ranging from totally free, like YouTube. They have an auto-generate feature, up to a little bit more expensive, a service called rev.com, which is really popular, which uses actual people to transcribe your video. The last thing I want to say about this is with a few exceptions, for Instagram and Twitter, you cannot upload an SRT file along with your video. It's just not possible. You can do it on LinkedIn, you can do it on Facebook, obviously Vimeo and YouTube, but Instagram and Twitter do not have that feature widely available. So what we do for clients is we burn in captions on the video so that they always appear when we're sharing it on Instagram or Twitter, so that the viewer cannot turn them on or off. All right, so first tip, always include captions on your videos. Second tip, we're gonna do a quick activity. So if you want to participate, a couple of things. So make sure you're on mute, which I think y'all are. Everyone is muted. I'm going to share a couple of links. Click on one of the links and play the video you see on screen, okay? So I'm going to copy a couple of these links into the chat. Click on one of these. And as you're playing the video, I want you to ask yourself, how much control do I have over this video? Can I start and stop it easily? Can I control the volume with my mouse? Can I scrub to the end? Can I easily turn on and off subtitles? Just play around with the video a little bit. And then once you get a feel for what this experience is like, tell me about it in the chat. So leave comments in the chat once you've played around with this video. So if anyone has feedback on what their experience was like in terms of the control they have. Brian says it's intense. I love it. Yeah, that's a very interesting site. Let's see. No control though. Okay. Yeah, anyone else have any thoughts to share? We'll wait a couple more minutes. And I will say, fortunately, I mean, it is kind of unfortunate, but it's fortunate in a way that it's been hard for me to find examples of this increasingly. There used to be a lot more examples of these types of videos. And in fact, in the first presentation that Alisa and I did, I had another link, another website for y'all to check out. And I went to it the other day and they revamped their video and it's great. So I'm like, shoot, but that's good. That's good news. All right. So Amanda says first, like there's a lot to look at. No control allowed. Neither seem welcoming or inclusive. Yeah, sensory overload. So Chuck says with Tribute, there's no ability to pause within the PC browser. And he says it might be the security extensions. It's not. I have the same experience. No ability to stop it. Okay, this is great feedback. So this is actually related to the second story. It says no option to turn off autoplaying. Yeah. So the second tip is to use an accessible video player. So at a minimum, you should really allow viewers to start and pause the video through the keyboard and the mouse. Same thing, adjust the volume through the keyboard and the mouse, and turn captions on and off with the keyboard and the mouse. Autoplay, a big no-no, don't do this. So I don't think we need to get overwhelmed with this tip. I feel like, especially judging from your comments, we kind of know this intuitively, right? Like we always like to have control over the digital content we're interacting with. So when this tip really comes into play when you have a video that you're using the embed code on a web page, right? So you have this video, you want it to show up on a web page, you need to grab the embed code. Most people use YouTube. And the good news is that the easiest thing to do is just to make sure that when you grab that embed code, show player controls is selected. So you can see there from the screenshot, you want to make sure that's checked. And even better news, it defaults to that. So you're in pretty good shape as long as you always keep this rule in mind and just know that it's something that you should do, is always giving your viewers control over the content. All right, so those are my 2 video tips. I'll hand it over to Alisa for website stuff.
Thanks. All right, so like Rachel said, I've got 3 website tips to share with you today. And all of these are things that you can do to make your website more accessible. And always just keep in mind that you can do little micro steps and improve it just over time. But these are all things that are easy, low-hanging fruit items. So the first one is to write alt text properly. So out of all of the pieces of advice that we offer, this is the one that we suggest the most. Writing alt text is one of the best and most simple actions that you can do to make sure that you're creating accessible content. Fortunately, most social media platforms and WordPress and other website builders really easily allow you the option to embed alt text in your photos. But writing the alt text is not like writing a caption. So there's a few things to keep in mind. The first tip is to keep it under 125 characters. This is important because the software that people use to read a website to them, if they have low vision or are blind, it's called a screen reader. And these screen readers sometimes can truncate the alt text if it gets too long. So think of it like a short tweet. It's like the most concise information that you can, or the most concise description that you can use to describe specifically what is it in this image. One of the best ways to keep it concise is to not use words like a picture of, or an image of, or anything else that is making it sound like you're describing what it's about. You need to just describe the picture, because the screen reader will tell the person that this is an image. So I've got a few examples. Oh, and then also, you don't have to do this for images that are purely decorative. This is something that is really being used to describe the content, like whatever the reason this image is on the page, whether it's illustrating an example of something or showing people in an office on your team, like whatever it is, the reason that alt text is there is to give the person who is using a screen reader the same experience as if they were looking at it. So if it's a decorative swirl or some like little fancy separator, just the fact that that's there doesn't mean that it needs description. So let's see. Oh, another really important thing with being specific and concise, you need to be sure that you're not keyword stuffing. It's really important because a lot of people in the olden days of the internet, it was popular to stuff SEO keywords into the alt text to make you rank better on Google. But that's not what alt text is for, because when somebody is listening with a screen reader, it's going to sound strange to whoever's listening to this alt text, but it actually does the inverse of what you expect. And it will negatively hurt your ratings because Google is getting smarter and smarter by the day, for better or worse. As a quick example, we have a photo here where there's some students working on a project for their course. And although that sentence of these are students working on a project for their course would suffice, it's important to offer context when applicable, especially if the photo is adding to the content. So in this case, this is a photo that was being used on some social media, and it directly related to a science course that was being featured. So instead of just saying students working on a project for their course, the alt text that would be great would be ECU undergraduate students working on a robotics project for their technology course. So that's providing the reader with an understanding of the photo, what the people are doing, why it's related to the content that's being shown on social media. And with it being well under 125 character limit, it's guaranteed to be fully read by any screen reader used. So then the next step that I have is another one about being descriptive. So using descriptive linked text is probably one of the biggest offenders that I see daily. It is very important to be clear about what will happen when a visitor clicks on a link. Not only does it help people navigate your content, but it also does help with your website's SEO and accessibility. So in fact, it's also one of the universal recommendations when it comes to improving a website's SEO even, is to not just say, click here or learn more. The internet is littered with hyperlinks on words like here in all caps. And so just with a quick show of hands, how many people here see this? Yeah, it's everywhere. The screen readers actually give people a list of links that are present in a page. And when they get a list of 20 links that all say, click here, learn more, there's no telling what these links are going to do. So this is a way that some people can scan, or kind of like, it's like when you're going to an article and it's really long and you're like, how long is this article? And you scroll down, just kind of get a sense of what's in there, looking at the headings, seeing what links there are. This feature of screen readers where it gives you a list of links, it's pretty much the same thing. So when links are described by the sentence before the link, that context is completely removed. So when you're writing your link text, keep in mind that you want the description of the action, the context about what that link is, to be the text that's hyperlinked. So in this example, a good example is send us an email. That's the hyperlinked text, and let us know what you think. Or the bad example that I actually took from a real life place will remain nameless, but the example was, let us know what you think by emailing us. And then the word here is in all caps and underlined, and that's the hyperlink. And that is just a very quick and simple little switch that you can make in your everyday website, email communications, all of these things when you're putting hyperlinks in text. So then the very, very last tip is to make sure that the contrast between text and icons in the foreground is high against the background. So the left side, we've got high contrast, and on the right, we've got low contrast. And so this example seems a bit obvious, but you'd be surprised by how often we see this low contrast in emails or blog posts and on social media. Soft colors, you know, it's nice to have that soft look sometimes, but when it's important text that you're trying to show, or especially on a website around like input fields on a form, like really knowing that there's a border there, it's very important. So making sure that things that are important, like text icons, buttons, all of these things have that high contrast. And it gets a little bit technical, but bear with me. So what do I mean by high contrast? There are tools that will help you with this, and I'll share an example here in a minute of a really good one. But the numbers that are used to display if your colors are high enough contrast, you'll need, for small text, you'll need the ratio to be 4.5 to 1. And that's a measure of the ratio between the foreground and the background colors. For small text is defined by being 18 pixels bold, like less than 10 than or equal to, I guess. It's less than 18 pixels bold or less than 24 pixels regular weight font. It needs to have a higher ratio, 4.5 to 1. When it's larger text, you could get away with a lower ratio of 3 to 1. And large text is defined as greater than or equal to 18 pixels bold or 24 pixels regular weight font. And I recognize that this is technical. This is really going out to all the designers out there. And the good news is that there are tools that will help you with this. So there's a great one called Stark that is a plugin available for Figma, Adobe XD, Sketch, and it will tell you straight away what color contrast there is. And it can also give you a few recommendations. If you're a little bit off, it'll give you like a slightly darker shade of the background, for instance. Some other color contrast tools that are for everyday people that are not using programs like I just mentioned, there are websites that are available. The first one that I wanted to mention is called Contrast Finder. The website is app.contrast-finder.org. And it lets you just enter in 2 hex colors. Hex codes are the hashtag, and then it has 6 characters afterwards. That's a color code. And it will tell you exactly what the color contrast is between those 2 colors, and then it will suggest valid colors. Colorsafe.co is another really good one where it will give you some really beautiful and accessible color palettes that meet the color ratio criteria. So those are my 2 go-to websites. I recommend you checking them out.
Okay, so just a reminder that if you want to download your free accessibility checklist, go ahead and visit the site. I'm going to drop it again in the chat so you can click. You can download your free guide, which goes into more detail. Again, just scratching the surface here, but this is this PDF is a lot more comprehensive.
So we recognize that in 40 minutes, it's a lot to cover, but we want to make sure that there's time here for you all to ask questions. If you don't have a chance, if you think of something later, you're welcome to email either of us. We have our emails here on this slide. And you can also follow us on social media. Both of our companies are on Instagram and Twitter, LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out. But for now, does anybody have any questions? You can put it in the chat. I think you can unmute yourself if you'd like. So Blaise, yes, that examples of good accessible sites. Right off the top of my head, the one that has impressed me the most this year is actually whitehouse.gov. They built this amazing website in like 6 weeks, and it's beautiful and accessible. Pretty much, I would say that a lot of the US government websites are great examples because the federal law requires any federal websites or any organizations even that receive federal funding to have accessible websites. But you're also welcome to, I can put in a link to this is my company, and we focus on doing this. So in our portfolio, we've got some great examples recently of sites that we've built, and we're getting better every single time we're building a new accessible website. We're learning things too. And so the more recent examples definitely are great examples of accessible sites. Any other questions? I actually have a question for Rachel, if nobody else does, about when you're uploading a video to a platform, where is it that you even see the SRT file? Like, is it a separate upload link, or is it something that like after you upload the video, you can then import the SRT file?
Yeah, it depends on where you are. So YouTube, in the like video manager, it will give you the option to upload an SRT file. In Facebook, it's just one of the links. I can't picture it off the top of my head, but it's in the options as you're like adding more detail. It will give you the option to upload a file. I would say the only one that like it's like every time I miss it and I have to go back is in LinkedIn. So LinkedIn gives you that option. If you are uploading a video to LinkedIn, you can include an SRT file. But at least right now, it's kind of hidden. Like you have to scroll down and it gives you the option to do that. But you really want to do it when you're uploading the video file, because if you don't do it, then you can't go back and add it. That's just a little LinkedIn tip. But yes, it's always, no matter what platform you're using, it's somewhere in the same area where you're uploading the video. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see, there was another question about the color contrast links, and I'll go back to those and I can copy, or I can enter those into the chat for you. And colorsafe.co. Okay, so those are, those two links are added into the chat. And Brian is saying that a fun fact is that you can manually edit alt tags on images in most social platforms like Instagram. Yeah, they are similar to the SRT file. They don't make it completely obvious the way to do this. So usually when I'm looking on social media for adding alt text, it's like either right under the photo, like once it uploads, there's a little bit of a preview, or it's like an overlay on the image. There's going to be like a little like pencil icon in a corner or something. Like you kind of have to know what you're looking for to find it, but you usually can. If you look for it, you can find it. All right, well, so the last activity that we have is we actually wanted to get everybody into some breakout rooms to start coming up with, have a discussion about how accessible is your digital content now. Think about your website, your social media, any videos that you have. And what is one thing from this talk that you can implement in the next month? And so we're going to throw you into breakout rooms. If you have any other questions for us, always please feel free to email us. And so while you're in the breakout rooms, we'll also pull up the, we'll drop in our contact information to the chat.
All right, I'm moving y'all over to breakout rooms now. You'll be in there for 5 minutes, and then you'll come back to the main room. Okay, I think everybody's in.
I'm so hungry and off today.
I'm getting kind of hungry too. Oh,
Let me pause this.
So much. Thank you for resuming the recording. Anybody want to share any takeaways that you had in your groups? Is everybody able to unmute themselves if they want to, or is that something we need to turn on, Amanda? Okay. So again, just as a reminder, like this is not meant to be something that you have to go and do immediately and make all of these changes all at once. Every little action that you take is going to be progress in the right direction. So whether it is a small action like going through your site and updating the alt text or changing out links, or if it's just actions that you're taking moving forward with new things that you're creating, just, you know, whatever you can do, we encourage it, and we're always here as a resource.
Well, thank you both so much for speaking today and giving us all this great information. I totally am with you, one little step at a time. And it changes every day. We're learning every day. So really appreciate y'all. And thank you everyone who joined today. A reminder, if you would like your little bag, shoot me a DM real quick with your address if you're not local, and we'll get that sent to you, or just come by the Frontier, come by my office, and I will give you one. But thank you all so much. We will be back again next month. Check out our Eventbrite, Research Triangle Park, to see details. We've got September's installment and October's installment up. So we will see you all then. And thank you again, Alisa and Rachel. Y'all are awesome.
thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, thanks everybody for coming.
Bye-bye.